Achilles is often celebrated as the man who chose glory over life, the hero who knew his fate and embraced it anyway, the warrior who traded a long, obscure existence for everlasting fame. But Homer tells a far darker story. Achilles doesn't choose glory at all. He chooses death because love has already destroyed him. That distinction matters, because if Achilles truly dies for glory, then the Iliad ultimately affirms the heroic code that governs its world. Death becomes meaningful because it is exchanged for fame. Violence becomes justified because it leads to remembrance. But if Achilles dies because grief has made life unbearable, then Homer is doing something much more unsettling. He is showing how fragile heroic values really are, how quickly they collapse when confronted with real human loss. Most warriors in the Iliad never face this problem. Hector does not sit down and weigh honor against life. Ajax does not pause to consider whether glory is worth the cost. Diomedes does not debate the system that sends him into battle. They inherit it. Heroism is not a choice for them. It is the structure that gives their lives shape and meaning. They fight because fighting is what makes them who they are. Achilles is different. Achilles is the only hero who can step far enough outside the system to see it clearly. He notices what everyone else accepts without question: that death comes to the brave and the coward alike, that heroic labor does not guarantee justice, that honor is distributed arbitrarily by kings and remembered selectively by poets. Because Achilles can see the system, he can also refuse it. When Agamemnon insults him, Achilles does not simply withdraw in wounded pride. He withdraws knowingly. He understands exactly what he is giving up. He knows that if he returns to battle, he will gain glory and die young. If he stays out, he will live long and be forgotten. And he chooses life. This is one of the most radical moments in the poem. Achilles does not misunderstand heroism. He rejects it. He has already reasoned his way out of the bargain that defines the heroic world. But even here, Homer is careful to show that something is unstable. Achilles withdraws from battle, but he does not truly live. He sits by the ships, playing the lyre, singing of heroic deeds. Even in exile from war, he can only rehearse the world he has rejected. Life outside heroism has no clear shape for him. What makes it bearable is Patroclus. Patroclus is not simply someone Achilles loves. He is the relational center of Achilles' existence. In a world where identity is defined through bonds, son of someone, companion of someone, remembered by someone, Patroclus anchors Achilles to a version of life that does not require glory. With Patroclus, Achilles can exist without dissolving. When Patroclus dies, that anchor is torn away. Homer does not portray Achilles' grief as noble or restrained. It is overwhelming and physical. Achilles collapses into the dirt. He covers himself in ash. He rejects food. He rejects sleep. He rejects the future. This is not heroic sorrow. It is the language of a self coming apart. When Thetis tells him that killing Hector will bring about his own death, Achilles does not deliberate. He does not argue. He does not weigh alternatives. "Then let me die at once," he says, "since I could not save my companion." This is the moment most often misunderstood. Achilles is not choosing glory over life. He is discovering that life is no longer survivable. The future he once protected no longer exists. Revenge does not give him meaning. It gives him direction. It gives his grief somewhere to go. Once Patroclus is gone, Achilles does not fight because death is worth it. He fights because living without Patroclus is not. Achilles returns to battle, but not as a restored hero. He returns emptied. He no longer eats. He no longer sleeps. He does not imagine a life beyond the present moment. His violence becomes relentless, excessive, almost impersonal. He kills without mercy. He denies burial to the dead. He drags Hector's body behind his chariot long after any purpose has been served. This is not heroic rage in the traditional sense. It is what happens when identity collapses and only function remains. The moment Achilles stops caring whether he lives is the moment he stops caring whether others deserve dignity. The heroic code does not guide him here. It fails to restrain him. The values that once justified violence prove incapable of containing it once love is gone. This is why it is a mistake to say Achilles returns to battle for glory. Glory comes later. In the world of the Iliad, glory is how society explains deaths it cannot justify. It is not so much a reward as a narrative strategy, a way to turn catastrophic loss into something that can be endured, remembered, even admired. Achilles does not seek immortality through song. Once life has lost coherence, remembrance becomes irrelevant. Glory becomes the story others tell because they cannot tolerate what actually happened. Homer preserves this story, but he fractures it from within. And that fracture becomes visible in Achilles' meeting with Priam. Priam does not approach Achilles as a king addressing a hero. He does not speak of honor, victory, or fame. He speaks of fathers and sons, of old age, of grief that waits even for those who survive. He asks Achilles to remember Peleus, not what Achilles will achieve, but what he will never return to. This moment does not redeem Achilles. It interrupts him. For a brief time, Achilles is no longer a weapon or a symbol. He weeps as a son. He recognizes that suffering is not distributed according to merit, and that no amount of glory compensates for what has been taken. Homer ends the poem here. Not with triumph, but with burial. Not with victory, but with mourning. The machinery of violence pauses long enough for shared vulnerability to surface. The Iliad does not reject heroism outright. Achilles is unmatched in excellence, and his name endures because of it. But Homer refuses to let that excellence stand unexamined. He shows what it costs: early death, isolation, and grief that no narrative can redeem. Achilles becomes the greatest of heroes only after losing everything that made heroism livable. He does not die because glory is worth the price. He dies because love has already taken everything else. Revenge gives his grief direction. Heroic culture gives his death a name, but neither gives him back a self that can survive. The greatest hero of the Iliad does not fall for glory. He falls because without love, there is no version of life that can hold him.